Hello, my name is Oliver Pickard and welcome back to my garden. It's been a considerable amount of time since we started this project, and so I thought it might be nice as a goodbye to go back through it and see just how much work we have done to this little car. Because in the first video I stood here and I told you all the things that were wrong with this car, and oh boy were there more things than I counted on. So let's go through some of the things and do a little before and after, and then what we'll do is we'll take her for a drive, shall we? So starting at the rear, we of course have our brand new roof with its rain protective magnetic strip, and in the boot floor is unfortunately rusting. We have a brand new boot floor underneath our boot floor cover, which means we now have double the amount of storage. If you're wondering, this is a picnic set and a tool bag. We now have a new inner wing. We have no rusty holes, we have no damp smell, no water entering the car, and no risk of the shopping falling out of the boot floor as you're driving down the road, which is always nice. Underneath the car we have a brand new plastic fuel tank with all new ethanol safe fuel lines, and the underseal has all been scraped off of the entire chassis, and the chassis and suspension has all been repainted with light grey tool paint. This prevents rust and it's massively abrasion resistant, and the light grey colour allows us to track and trace leaks and prevent them. And it looks very handsome indeed. The rear shock absorbers aren't just worn and tired, they're actually blown. Along with the chassis, the suspension has been completely rebuilt, along with brand new shock absorbers, knife edges, and the spring cans have been properly adjusted and lubricated. So the front end is no longer super low, which is nice. Oh, and the correct number of chassis bolts has now been added. We noticed while we were doing it that there were a bunch missing, so they have now been replaced with the correct Citroen hardware. Under the bonnet, which we didn't talk about in the first video, but has since been prettied up. It's all been repainted. We removed the engine, we've cleaned all of the engine up, and redone all of the dynamatting on the firewall, repainted all of the firewall. The engine was in perfect running condition, but oddly enough apparently it now feels faster, but we'll be the judge of that, eh? But yeah, it's all been repainted and prettied up, and we've got new belts, we have a bunch of new service items including new engine mounts, which is nice. And of course the chassis has been painted all under the engine, and the shafts have been rebuilt as well. Inside, this roof liner has seen better days. We have a new indicator stalk and we have new window runners as well, so the windows slide really nicely. And of course, the hardest job on this entire car, the windscreen wiper no longer tries to take itself for a walk every time you turn it on. And we replaced the roof with a brand new matte soft tops unit, far better quality than anything ever offered by Citroen, and of course a brand new sunshade which goes full length again, far better than anything ever offered by Citroen, because if you're going to spend the money, why not get the best? The original interior light rebuilt with an LED panel, still proud of that. Now of course we've spent months working on this car, so what does it all add up to? Can you tell from the driver's seat? Ages ago I first reviewed this car when everything was wrong with it, and the front end was wayward, it understeered, it felt jiggly, it was quiet and it was smooth, and the engine and gearbox were fantastic. But if I'm honest, the driving experience left a lot to be desired. So what's it like now, eh? Let's take it for a drive and find out. It's the third time I've driven this car on camera now. Well, technically the fourth. I tried to film this yesterday and I had a bit of a memory card malfunction, so I'm refilming it. But that's good, it's let me marinate the thoughts in my brain for a day. And it's a very interesting one, this, because it's, like I said, it's the fourth time I've driven this car on camera. And every single time I've driven this car, it's felt completely different to drive. I mean, completely different to drive. Like a different car. Yesterday I drove it with the roof back And I think with the roof back and the sun cover on, as wonderful as it is, as quiet as it sounds for me, the microphone concentrates very much on what it looks at, because my microphone setup, my sound setup isn't very clever. So it was just concentrating on the little bit of wind noise that happens from the roof in this car, which is interesting because a 2CV is actually quieter with the roof back than it is with the roof up. So that is interesting in itself. But I've put the roof on today, so hopefully we'll get better sound quality, because this is a wonderfully quiet car now. You get a little bit of engine noise, and of course the classic 602 gearbox whine. See? But it's a lot quieter than it was. You get a lot less road noise. There's a lot less tyre noise than there used to be. Now, of course, one of the biggest differences with this car from the previous setup is the fact that it now has 135 front tyres rather than 125 front tyres. And the difference is huge. It's also raised in the front as well, but it feels a lot taller. The driving position, oddly, feels taller. And you can notice the difference in the gearing. It's not as sprinty, and it's a lot more long-legged than it previously was. It feels taller geared, because obviously the rolling diameter of a wider tyre is greater, so it's actually geared the car up, and that I think will give you really nice motorway manners. It's always been a very good cruising car, as this Diane. It's always been very well suited to kind of trundling along and not being in a rush. The torque from the 602 engine allows you to kind of waft along. It's a car that feels very sure of itself now. It feels a lot more grown up now. It's got the correct number of bolts in the chassis, holding it to the chassis. Before it was safe, but it wasn't. We discovered a bunch of missing bolts when we were rebuilding the suspension. So they've all been replaced with the correct Citroen hardware, and it feels very, very solid now. Like I say, it feels like a very grown-up car. It feels very unlike my car, Jolene. Jolene feels like a little rally car. It feels like a toy. It kind of eggs you on. It's go on, drive me faster, come on. Because you feel like you have to keep up the momentum. Where in this you don't. You can just waft along with the torque. There's no requirement to keep up your speed. I tend to actually drive this slower than I do my own 2CV, which is quite telling to the kind of the attitude of the car. Third gear's still sprinty, but with the larger diameter tyres. Fourth gear is now kind of reserved for wafting along, and that's quite nice. It gives it quite a split personality. You can actually drop a gear and accelerate, or you can just shove it in fourth and treat it like an automatic, which has always been the best thing about the 602 cars. It feels a lot smoother, it feels a lot more grown up, it feels a lot more sure of itself and a lot more solid. Like I said, Jolene, she's a toy really. She eggs you on. She feels like a little rally car. Dream cars are all well and good, but I'll take a 2CV in cruise over a Ferrari in Paris every day of the week and twice on Sundays. And this before, if I'm honest, the first time I drove it I was really disappointed. But yeah, dynamically I prefer my little 2CV. It didn't feel 11 years newer than my 2CV. It felt like a car of the same period. It felt like a car of the same time, just more disappointing, which is sad. It was understeery, it was sloppy, it felt loose, and now it doesn't. Now it feels tight, it feels responsive. We've also changed the brake master cylinder, by the way, since the last video. It was showing signs of being tired. A lot of people express concern about 2CV brakes, but actually 2CV brakes are really good. They're, I think it's partly because they're not actually stopping any weight, but these being drum brakes, they're not unresponsive at all. They're not spongy. They were before we changed the oil and replaced the master cylinder, but now they're fantastic. And it's just a really nice car. It feels a lot more modern. It feels like a new car, but it feels like a new Diane, should I say, not like a new car, because I've actually got steering feel, and the suspension doesn't feel like it's made out of wood like most modern hatchbacks. Now, with the tyres being a bigger size, it has come with a slight drawback for me, which is that there's a lot less steering feel than previously. I think the steering feels better damp, which on the motorway would be lovely. But I don't like it. There's a lot less steering feel. 2CVs, especially earlier 2CVs, have the feeling that you can feel the tyre flex through the steering wheel, and you can't do that anymore. It loads up. It loads up on a corner. It's not dead, but I don't know. Compared to like my car, there's a lot less steering feel. Is that a bad thing? I don't think so, because my car less talks to you through the steering wheel and more, screams at you. But at the same time, I do kind of, on a tight twisty road, I do kind of miss it. Although on a motorway, on a long journey, my car can be incredibly fatiguing because you just can't relax while driving it. Whereas this now feels, like I said, it feels very grown up. It feels like it's got its act together, and it feels a lot more solid. I feel like I'm sat a lot taller now. The front suspension's at the correct ride height, and we've got the taller tyres. It does feel a bit crossover, I must admit, which is not a bad thing. It's just different to what it was. But I'll take this any day over how disappointing it previously felt, because it like I say, it previously just felt really washy, a bit floppy and a bit flexy and a bit like a wet noodle. Whereas now it feels a lot more solid. It feels reliable. It feels sturdy, which is, it's far more reassuring than it previously was. The roof is lovely. Yesterday I drove with the roof back, like I say, and the sun cover on, and the sound wasn't mega, so I'm hoping this is going to be far better. That's more to do with my microphone setup than it is the roof itself, although you do get a little bit more buffering noise with the roof all the way back and the sun cover on, I noticed, but it's negligible, and that might just be a Diane roof compared to a 2CV roof, because of course the roof of a Diane is flat, whereas a 2CV roof is curved. One of the biggest things for me in this car has been getting rid of all the rattles and the vibrations and the things rubbing together. And that Laguna 2 rear carpet, some people laughed about that, but it's really made a big difference. It's superb. And that's because it comes with a load of sound deadening and all that, but it wasn't really the Laguna 2 rear mat, it was the boot floor. Putting in a proper boot floor and having the two separate compartments, it allows you to insulate the car, but it also gives you more storage. And my rubber mat that I have in the back of my car, so that I can just chuck stuff in the back of my car and slide it in, that was fitted by the previous owner. And my flooring in the back isn't plywood, it's MDF, and it's nowhere near as good as this. And I'm going to be replacing the MDF because it's soggy and it's flexy and it's horrible to sit on. I'm going to be replacing it with plywood, just like this, and getting a Laguna 2 mat, because the amount of sound deadening and the niceness of it all for the price is just superb. And you can really notice the difference in the gearing when you're climbing a hill like this. This is quite a long drag, and it's quite tight and twisty, so you've got acceleration and deceleration. not really using of brakes. I don't tend to use my brakes very much. That comes from driving Jolene. I do use my brakes more in this car, I noticed, than in mine. And I think that's because it weighs a bit more, and just because, I don't know, you don't feel like you can chuck this in the same. But, yeah, that rear carpet is superb. God, it's in Miller Road. On roads like this, you can overdrive what you can see. And because a lot of people come round the corner, understeering in the middle of the road. It drives me nuts. So you really got to stick to your lane, even though there's no centre line. Especially people from town just come to the countryside and freak out because there's no centre line. But, yeah, it's really confidence inspiring once you get used to it. Once you relax and really get used to it, it's lovely. And I dare say I'd rather take this on a long journey of almost any sort than Jolene, which is saying something, because I love my car, but it is very fatiguing to drive, whereas this just isn't. You know, one of the nice things about the Dynamat is just how much of a difference it makes. It really does. People ask me all the time, one of the most common emails I get is like, is the Dynamat worth it? How much of a difference does it make? It makes a massive difference. And this car has no carpet in it, other than the carpet that's in the boot floor. The rest of it is just a rubber mat. It's the basic rubber mat because my parents want to be able to sweep this car out. And it's superb. It's absolutely brilliant. To say that it's only a rubber mat, I mean, you know, you compare this to like a Land Rover Defender, and you'd be, or even my old Daihatsu, and you'd be rattling along now, and it'd be horrible. People have given me flack in the past for referring to 2CVs as the French Land Rover, but they really are. This car is just a more refined Land Rover. It's a four-wheel drive, or a Daihatsu Rocky, or a Land Cruiser, or whatever you want. Like, it's just a Land Cruiser that's better at being a car. You know, one of the things about off-road vehicles is that you spend 90% of your time walking around in. I'm just gonna put the roof back so it's roasted actually. Nobody's on this bit of road. One of the things about four-wheel drives is you spend your entire life driving round with your four-wheel drive gear. So you spend all your time and your fuel economy and all that driving round with something that you're only going to need for 10% of the car's life, which is like saying, oh, I go skiing in summer, and so I wear salopettes every day of the year. Whereas, there you go, and back in half she goes. Like that. That's better. Let's try that out, shall we? But I'll put it on. It's like I say, it's like saying, oh, I go skiing once a year, so I'm going to wear salopettes every day of the year. It doesn't make sense to me. Whereas a 2CV is, it's 99% as good off-road as a Land Rover, unless you want to kind of tow something really big. A 2CV will still tow a trailer, and I know people who tow caravans with 2CVs, you know, in a little Ariba Puck or something like that. Oh, that's better. I breathe. Oh, it's beautiful. It feels hot and sweaty and muggy today. I was wearing a jacket before. I've had to take my jacket off before I even started filming. I was cooking, and I don't like to drive with the windows down because it ruins the sound. So hopefully this will be a better compromise. But oh, that's absolutely wonderful. For a long time now, what was I saying? Oh yeah, off-road cars and 2CVs. For a long time now, I've wanted to do a video with my 2CV Jolene against a CJG and do a comparison of what they are like to live with and what they are like off-road and what they are like on a motorway. because on most motorways in an older four-wheel drive, you're going to be limited to about 50 miles an hour, and Jolene will trundle along at 56 miles an hour, which is 90 kilometers an hour. So you've got roughly similar performance, and you've got fuel economy that four-wheel drive owner could only dream of. And off-road, especially in sand and snow, you may even have better off-roading capability than a heavy four-wheel drive. These things on sand and snow, as long as you don't stop, are utterly fantastic. So, like I say, in comparison to how you would rattle along in even a later Defender, like a 2000s Defender, with the noisy gearbox and all of that, you don't have any of that in this. Oh, you do. You've got a little bit of gearbox noise, a little bit of engine noise, but you don't have any of the rattliness. I mean, it's superb. And yes, I just compared a car from 1974 to a car from the 2000s, because a Defender really, even from the 2000s, is a car from 1982. As much as I love them, I adore the Land Rover Defender. But it feels that good. This is my parents' car, and one of the things that my mum often says is she feels like when she drives a classic car that she's going on an adventure. That's what she loved about their Land Rover. My parents have previously owned Daihatsu 4 drives, they've owned Mitsubishi Pajero, they've owned Land Rover Defender 110, ex-Scottish Power, which we drove for thousands of miles around France. And then they've fallen in love with their Diane, and I don't think that's a coincidence, because this car does feel incredibly capable. It does feel like you're going on an adventure when you drive it. Especially with how sure-footed it now is, and how sure of itself it is, and that's something that my car doesn't have, and I'm a little bit jealous of that. I've got to be honest. I mean, someone could say to me in this car now, like, meet me in the top of Scotland for a thing, and I would happily jump in this. Whoa, little birds all over the road. Come on, little birds. There we go. I would happily jump in this now and drive to the top of Scotland without a second thought. You can feel the edge of the road when you approach it. Just as you touch it with the tyre, you can feel it through the steering wheel. So I suppose the steering wheel isn't quite isn't quite as bad as I'm making it out to be. Oh no, my hair is going to be ruined. Let's go the long way home. And then the camera died. I think it overheated. GoPros tend to do that when they're in a very confined space. And then the water pump turned on. Anyway, GoPros tend to overheat when they're in a very confined space with no airflow, and I think that's what happened. It didn't tell me that it had stopped recording, so I did film for another hour, and we went on some nice curvy roads and stuff like that. But anyway, I really enjoyed working on the Diane. I really enjoyed doing something really nice for my mum and dad. When I was younger, they could never have anything that they could ever keep forever. We've had loads and loads of cars, and when I remember being 8 years old, and my friend Scott saying to me in the school playground, he said, "Oh, your family's really lucky that you've got this big car collection." I'm like, "What are you talking about, Scott?" And he's like, "Well, you got the Land Rover, and you've got the Mini, and you've got the A30, and you've got this, and you've got that, and you've got the other." And his family had the same Vauxhall for, since we'd been 4 years old, and my family in that time had 15 cars. So Scott just thought we had 15 cars. But the truth was that we could never keep anything forever, and we could never keep anything nice. We didn't have garage space, we didn't have workshop space when I was a kid, and so my mum and dad used to have to kind of buy and sell cars so they didn't put too many miles on them, because we couldn't afford to do any major work. And that was one of the reasons why my dad sold his rally car when I was a kid. And my dad's always regretted selling his rally car, and part of that is because the next owner crashed it and wrote it off. And that rally car is one of the reasons why I wanted to build Pandora. Like, I missed out on the experience of that car, and I grew up with the stories of my dad's rally cars and stuff like that. And it's one of the kind of the defining forces in my life that's what made me want to build cars and love cars and all of that kind of thing. And so to give back to my mum and dad for, you know, this YouTube channel wouldn't exist if it wasn't for my parents' love of cars. And my dad's rally car and the Renault 12s and the Escorts and I mean, my dad's A30. Like, I loved that thing. And to give back to them for giving me that joy is a lovely thing for me to be able to do, because my parents absolutely adore their Diane, and now it's in a state where they can look after it and keep it forever. It's not finished, it still needs a full respray one day, but it's mechanically sorted, it's not rusting, it's safe. Like I said, it's got the correct number of chassis bolts in, which helps, and it's mega, and they can now keep on top of it, but I can do bits of work of a weekend. I mean, my dad has never gone to a car show with the Diane, ever. He's never been proud enough of it to take it to a Cars and Coffee or a car show or anything. And other than like arrive, have a 5-minute look round and then like disappear off, because they didn't feel kind of proud of it, because it wasn't as tidy as they wanted it to be. And they didn't want it to reflect badly on me, you know, doing YouTube and having Jolene and stuff, because they didn't feel proud of their car. That's really sad. And so I'm overjoyed to have been able to help them to kind of achieve that dream. And that's one of the reasons why we spent so long doing it. Because if I'm going to do it, I need to make sure it's right, and I need to make sure that they have the car that they want. It's not the only car that they want, but it's a car that now they want to keep forever and daily drive for as long as they can drive. And a Diane is the perfect car for that. So yeah, I'm overjoyed for them, and I'm overjoyed in how much better that car feels, because if I'm honest with you, the first time I reviewed that car, I didn't want one. I'll be honest. My car was so much nicer. And now the Diane feels like, I don't know, it doesn't feel better than Jolene, but it feels very different. It feels like the 2CV GT, which is what the Diane is supposed to be. And like I said, on a long distance trip, on motorways and stuff, it's far better. You know, you don't need to wear earplugs. I know a lot of 2CV people that drive really long distances do wear earplugs, which is nuts to me. Just fit Dynamite. Do yourself a favour. And like I said, that car has no carpeting or anything, and it's wonderful. If I put carpet in that, it'd be fantastic. Now, I'm aware that the footage is slightly loud. The reason the footage is loud in that video is because I had the microphone on the heater duct, and of course the heater duct is a tube that runs straight to the engine. I did that so we could have some nice engine notes, as well as kind of hearing me. But it's superb, and yeah, I'm really proud of the work we've done. Now, what we are going to be doing now is we're going to bookend the Diane for now, and we are going to get started again on Pandora. I've also been doing some work on the house, but I'm not going to be making a house video yet. I need to make a lot more progress. I'm repointing all of the walls on the house, all of the exterior walls. I'm trying to do that before the first frost, which this year has been quite damp. And I'm guessing that we're going to have our first frost before November, which is when we usually get it. I'm assuming it's going to be October. And there's a lot of house to do. So yeah, I'm trying to get all of that pointing done before then, and then I can start working inside the houses and stuff, and then I'll make a video. But there's no point in me just making a video about pointing walls, so I'm doing that in between videos so that then I can make a house video, because it's less about making a house video and more about making my house. And there comes a point when you just need to make progress, so that's what I'm doing on that respect. Now, on the Pandora side of things, the next thing that we're going to be doing is locating the engine and all of that inside the roll cage, and that will then allow me to build the floor pan and locate the suspension and finish the front and rear of the chassis. And so you've got that to look forward to. I'm massively excited about it. I've I've really benefited from having the brake working on Pandora. It got a lot. It got a lot, I'll be honest. Because I'm so obsessed about getting it right. I'm so obsessed about making this car as good as I can make it and having it right. And obviously I've not got the world's biggest budget, and I'm trying to do it all. I'm trying to build the best engineering I can with what I have. And that's kind of what this YouTube channel is all about, after all. You know what I mean? I'm not some rich media company just throwing money at a car. Whether it ends up good or not doesn't matter. It's content. No, this is my car. I don't have a big budget, and so my money, just like your money, really matters to you. You know, my money really matters to me, and so where I put my money into this car really matters. So I'm obsessed about getting it right. And the kind of stress of getting it all right, getting it all perfect, and doing it all as precision as possible got a lot for me, to be honest. It got a lot. It was very fatiguing to make videos while also trying to make this thing that's super precise. So the next jobs are going to be locating the engine, because the engine has to be tilted back on a 14.5-degree angle and then brought all the way forward, because it sits about 5mm from the firewall. And then we can locate the rear shafts, which allow us to locate the rear suspension, get all the rear suspension geometry correct, then tie that all into the chassis. So, you know, make tabs and weld it all in and make it all adjustable and all of that. And that then will allow us to do the front, because the rear can't be changed, the rear can't be altered, the shafts are the length that the shafts are and all of that stuff. So all of that has to work properly. So we've got to do the engine first, then rear suspension, and then kind of front of chassis stuff, and then we'll have a rolling chassis and a proper project car, rather than a load of tubes and a fiberglass body on a table. And we can get to work making the GTM floor pan then, and we can actually have a rolling chassis, hopefully. I'm not going to say when, because anytime I say when in a YouTube video, it comes back to bite me. But it takes as long as it takes in order to be as nice as it can be. So, thank you all for watching. I hope that the people who've started watching these videos for Diane stuff are going to stick around for Pandora, because she shares a lot of the same mentality. She shares a lot of the same ethos that I take from my 2CV ownership, in that she is lightweight, she's designed for fuel economy, she's designed for performance, because she weighs the same as a 2CV. She actually weighs almost the same as the Diane, but she has a 2-litre, 200 horsepower engine, and she's way more aerodynamic, but because she's fuel injected, she should get the same fuel economy as a 2CV, if not better. This is my cruise missile for the motorways, so that I can keep my 2CV for every day. In fact, you can hear the Diane starting in the background. So, thank you all for watching. Please be awesome to each other. If you'd like to subscribe to the channel, there's a button there with my face on it. Click on my face to subscribe. And if you'd like some more videos, there's some Diane videos there, some 2CV videos there, and of course some Pandora videos there, so you can get all caught up on this before we get back to work on it. Because she's such a cutie. So, thank you all for watching. Please be awesome to each other, and I'll see you all in the next video. Bye-bye.